Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Old School. Really excited to do this show tonight. Uh, you know, uh, the 86-87 Flyers have a really special place in my heart in particular. My first year watching sports, I was an eight-year-old kid. First hockey game I went to was a bench clearing brawl when Brian, when you guys played the Islanders, there was a bench clearing brawl. That was the first game I was ever at. So it was
Yeah,
like,
well, that was old time hockey.
yeah, exactly. So, as an 8-year-old boy, I really identified with you guys, with all the heart that you played with and and the run that you guys made. And it just, I've been a diehard four for four Philly sports guy, ever since. And I know Sean, I've known, here's my partner here, Sean. I mean, we've known each other for 30 some years. He's a diehard sports guy. And then I got my man, Mike Fuji, right below him. What's up, Mike? How you doing, bro?
Doing well. Welcome to the show again, Brian. Appreciate you taking your time.
Yeah, and then we have a special guest, Brian Propp, Hall of Fame left winger from that 86-87 team. So really appreciate you having you on, Brian.
Yeah, that's good. Like the playoffs are just coming up right now. Like there's only 4 teams left, and like Edmonton and Florida looks like they could be facing off against each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that's one thing that's sad. I mean, we want to get back to those glory days. Obviously back when you guys played. I mean, there was cup runs every year. I mean, if you drove the streets of Philadelphia, you'd have the little what was it? The little styrofoam Stanley Cups in the windows. With the
right.
And the team pennants too on the window.
Yeah. What's that, Sean?
The team pendants on the windows too.
Right.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So, but anyway, that team was so special. So I just got a question for you. When did you guys realize, like, not only how special that team was, but also, I mean, you had a rookie goalie. I mean, did you guys see something special in Hextall, like kind of early in the season?
Well, Hextall changed the way the game played because the way he shot the puck so well. He dumped the check back in and shot the puck so hard that they couldn't forecheck. He changed the way the game was being played. And of course, at that time, 87, he was a rookie, and we had a good lineup that year, and so and of course with Mark Howe and Dave Poulin and Team Kerr and myself and Tockett and Zezel and Mallenby, we had a good group of guys and we were close. But in the 80s, when I first started in 1980, we had the Brodies, the tough guys, and so they learned from that. In 85, we were in the finals in 85, and we lost in against Edmonton, and then in 87, Hextall, he played so well, and that's probably why we forced a Game 7 the way he played. Otherwise, it would have been over before that.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's the thing, another thing about that team too, like you guys overcame so many injuries. I mean, and of course, Edmonton was so stacked. I mean, Edmonton had 7 Hall of Famers. You look at you had Gretzky, and the one thing about that Oilers team too, it's like everybody points to their offensive talent, but not only did you have all those great scorers, but then you guys on your end offensively had to contend with Grant Fuhr's in the Hall of Fame himself.
Yeah. So it was tough, but the way we played as a team, and so I know that everybody was really close on the team, especially in the 80s. Especially after Pele died in 85, we became much closer as a team, and we played to win every game, and then Keenan was a coach, and so he did a really good job. And when he first started in 85, and he went for 4 years, and so we were in 2 Stanley Cup finals, and of course, it was a close team, and it was just it was really good at that time just to be a good team that we had. We were in the playoffs every year, like they said. Now there's 32 teams, and it's tough to get into playoffs. Everyone has a chance to win in the playoffs right now, and so like it's just changed a lot the way that's been in 2025.
Brian, with all those injuries, there was 8 80s that were out for long extended periods of time in 86, 87. Yourself, Ilka Sinisawa, Ron Sutter, just to name a few. I mean, how did Mike Keenan just keep that whole nucleus together as far as, you guys just going on that magical run against Edmonton?
Well, the way it worked is that you had guys that played for each other, and we played as a team. So we played really good defense, and we had good scoring. And so we, with Hextall being the goalie, he had a fabulous year. And then, of course, Pelly a couple of years before that, he was really good too. And it made a difference just by being ahead most of the time. When you get ahead, it makes it a lot easier than falling behind because you're always chasing from behind. But with all of the players that we had with injuries, it was tough because it's more physical. And I know, for myself, I missed almost a year, for games. But now the guys can play 25, 30 years and not get hurt. It's not as physical, but when you get into the playoffs, it's more physical, and then there you have a chance to get hurt. But now, the guys just kind of can play for 5 or 6 minutes at a time with no whistles, and then get hit, and so it's kind of different the way the guys are playing right now.
Going back to the Wales Conference Finals, which today is the Eastern Conference Finals, it was the lifeline. It was you, Tocchet, and Pelly Eklund. And when you and Tocchet were driving down the ice, what was going through your mind when Tocchet scored to take the lead and up there in the Montreal Forum?
Yeah, so we had Keenan played different lines every once in a while. He figured out what was better to line with, and so with Pelly Eklund and Tocchet as a line, we had toughness and speed and finesse, and so that's why we beat Montreal, because they took a lot of dumb penalties, and then of course just at the right time. And when it comes to the playoffs, you learn how to win the bigger games. And so that's why I know that when I first started my first year in 1980, I was in the Stanley Cup Finals, and we went to the finals in Game 6, and overtime we lost in Game 6 and against the Islanders. Otherwise, who knows? We come back to Philadelphia, and I have a Stanley Cup. And then for a couple of years after that, we got beat by the Rangers in the first round. And so I learned at that time I had to be a much better player when it came to the playoffs, and to be much more consistent, and to get into playoffs and play a little longer. So I learned the lessons from that my first couple of years into the league. And so I just learned that, hey, you had to be ready to start, because you lose the first round, you're out, and then you're done for the season. So it's just, but we figured out a way to win. And of course, having Mark Howe and Brad McCrimmon, two good defensemen and good goalies, and good team of players, and of course Tim Kerr could score in the playoffs, and so of course he was out against Edmonton that year. Otherwise, who knows? One power play goal could have made a difference for him. But you can't think about that. You just have to do what you have to, just to do the best you can, and give yourself a chance to win a Stanley Cup.
Well, you're back to what you were saying, Mark Hale and Brad McCrimmon, probably one of the best defensive tandems in the league back then.
Yeah, always plus 85 every year.
Right.
Yeah. You're always, it's going to get a plus when they played, and because you're always on the win. But we good players, and of course Dave Poulin was a good coach. captain. He learned how to talk but we kind of ran our team ourselves. We didn't have to worry about how the coaching was because we had good teams, and that's why we were always in the playoffs. Hopefully the Flyers will learn. They've got a good young player this last year, and so they got a couple draft picks, and so they're building for the future, and hopefully they build at the right time with speed and just need I think they want to need a strong center iceman that can score or be tough, and we'll wait and see what they're going to pick this year, but hopefully they get better.
You mentioned Dave Poulin. That's so, every time I think of that team, I always think of you and Dave Poulin in a tandem killing penalties. Like how much pride did you guys take in killing those penalties? Because the opposition, they'd have the man advantage, but I can think of so many times where you guys went the other way and scored.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we were two of the best penalty killers in the 80s, like Dave Poulin and myself, like the top penalty killers for almost 10 years. And so you knew that they'd have to be careful that we forced, and we got some shorthanded goals, and so it was always a threat for them to score. Like now you see that the guys are forcing it a little bit more, like Colorado and Colorado, they can force all the time, and they can score some shorthanded goals. And so you have to be careful about that too. But just playing defense and going for a shorthanded goal can really make a difference just on the change of the game.
Sure.
Yeah, I would think it's extremely, demoralizing. I mean, here you are, you have the man advantage, and the next thing you know, you got one going in your net. It's like a double whammy.
Yeah, well, thankfully, we had Tim Kerr and scored a lot, and Mark Howe was a good defensive, and our power play was really good, and we had the quality guys that Ekin could pass it really well, and Tim could shoot the puck one time, and we'd be in front of the net, we'd shoot the puck and get the rebounds and deflections, and so that's just it's like now, like I see the power ball that they don't shoot too much, and they just have to learn how to shoot and get in front of the net and try to get a rebound.
Brian, as far as early in your career, I believe you played when you first came up with the Flyers. You played for Pat Quinn, correct?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
What was it like playing with Pat? I know you had Pat Quinn and Bob McCannon and Mike Keenan. What was the difference of the three?
Well, I really liked Pat Quinn because he was a X and O's guy, and he ran good practices, and he's fair with everybody, and at that time we had Bob Clark and McLeish and Barber and Kello and all those guys that won some Stanley Cups, and so right. They kind of knew what was going on, and when I first started, I was with Kenny Linsman and Paul Holmgren, and Kenny was kind of different because he never listened, and so he had to do the drills a couple times to get it done, and but he still was a good player, but he just kind of whiffy. But you never know. You need a couple guys like that. But then McGammon, he was just a little different because I didn't really care for him because he just was just kind of. He won a championship in Portland, and he was a good coach there. But then it was much better when we got Keenan.
Sure.
No, nothing. I'm just enjoying everything that Brian's bringing back from '86. And what is one of your most memorable plays playing with the Flyers?
Yeah, of course. In 1980, when we went to the Stanley Cup Finals, I know we lost in overtime, but getting there that year was special for me. That was the year we had the 35 undefeated streak, which probably will never be broken. And so we had good players and teams for that. And like I said, and then we lost the first round at the Rangers the first couple of times after that. And then 85, we were outbound because Edmonton and Brad McCrimmon was hurt that year. He got hurt in the first round of the playoffs, and that really made a difference because he was such a good leader and a good player. And then then 87, they were powerful too, but still we forced back, and we came back from 3-1 and forced a game 7. And people remember that how hard we worked, and we never gave up, and we were there. And then of course, when I played for Boston in 90 and then 91 with Minnesota, like going to the Stanley Cup Finals everything was special.
Nice.
Yeah, Mike Paquinick Jr. has a comment here. He says, "What was it like playing with Pelle Lindbergh?"
Well, he was a great player, and so he was just coming to his own. Like he won the Venice, and then so like the year before, and then unfortunately he got killed in a car accident. But he was a quiet guy, didn't drink too much, and which unfortunately was because he was out that one night. And then other than that, who knows? He could have won a Stanley Cup for us at that time. He was getting to be so good. You never know. You have a player like that makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Brian, I want to go back to the Montreal series. The pregame skate between, I believe it was Claude Lemieux shooting the puck into the Flyers' net, and Boxcar Hospital are going out and just pummeling them. And I know Chico Rest was out there too. Can you touch on like how that actually started?
Well, everybody knew that Montreal had at the end of the warm out, like they would shoot the puck into the open net. And so, of course, at that time, like they dressed more players for the playoffs. So there were more players on the ice. Like I know that a lot of them knew that they weren't going to be playing. So that's why where Ed Hospital was there. But he took offense that they shot the puck in the net, and he didn't want to shoot it in the net, and then so he started a brawl, and then everyone came out, and there were the referees and the linesmen. They didn't know what was going on, so it lasted for like 20 minutes, and so and just think about it. Montreal was a really tough team that year too, and we had good tough guys too, like Dave Brown, and they had Nyland, and they had. A bunch of Montreal players, and so it made a big difference that we still won the game and to kick them out of the playoffs.
I know you guys were on fire then, but I'm sure that just lit a bigger spark after that pregame brawl. I'm sure.
Yeah, it's just different, but you kind of you were used to that in the 80s, and then they changed the rules because now they always had to have referees out, and so it was fun when it happened.
Hey Brian, a buddy of mine plays goal. He wanted me to ask you about goalies, because he told me, he said he heard that you couldn't touch Hextall's equipment. Like basically like the idiosyncrasies or of goalies, if you have any funny stories.
Yeah, well, Hextall, like he was he's Retchu, and was like when he skated to the game, like when he banged the pucks on the posts with his just so he kind of knows where he was. It's like feeling where the nets were, and so he did that, and he used to that. But the goalies are different. Like you just leave them alone, and they don't say anything. You just let them do their own thing, and But Hextall was fiery. He had temper, and so I think I remember his first couple of years he won. He had over 200 penalty minutes in the first couple of years. Yeah,
it's amazing. I don't to this day. I mean, I know there's been a lot of, of course there's been great goalie performances. I mean, you could look at Brodeur and Hasek and all those guys, but like, I don't know if I've ever seen a guy like stand on his head, quote unquote, the way Hextall did in that Edmonton series. I mean, he was just, that was on, like, I don't know. I mean, I know at the time, I think Gretzky said it was like the best goalie he had faced at that point.
Yeah. Well, you got to remember, like Edmonton was so good, like you said,
Right.
like there's 7 Hall of Famers in their prime, and so like and just we just kind of got wore out. I remember at the end of the game, like we were so tired that we hated to lose, but know that it was over, and it was just deflating. But it was tough to get over. But you did an effort, you had a good effort, and we tried as hard as we could. So I think that's in Philadelphia. The people loved the effort that we had and the pride that we had up to this day.
Yeah. Mike Paquernick Jr. was wondering about those Islanders teams of the 80s, what they were like to play against.
Well, it's the same thing as us. Like I know that in 1980 we played against number 1 against number 16 in the division. So like that's the way they had it set up, and so that's why we played against the Islanders in the finals. And then after that, they changed the divisions. So we played against the Islanders and the Rangers a little bit more. And so but they were so good. I mean, they had good leadership and tough guys, and they had good players, and Bill Smith was a great goalie. And so 4 years in a row, like the Islanders won the Stanley Cup, and then Edmonton took off, and then they won 4 in a row, and then Calgary just put in there in the middle. And other than that, but it like for 10 years, it's tough to win because of the teams that you had at that time. And, at that time, you stayed with other teams. Like in the 80s, we were there for 8 or 10 years together with the lines that we had. We didn't make that much money, and so it was just we kind of paid for the fun of it. Basically, we didn't make that money, but it's still, we had good stories, and playing with good teams made a big difference. And so, thankfully for me, I was in the playoffs my first consecutive 13 years in the playoffs, and then in the last couple of years, like in Hart, Minnesota, like I wasn't in the playoffs, but just it gives you a chance to win, and when it comes to the playoffs.
Brian, can you touch on your book that you just released back in the fall?
Yeah, so I had a massive stroke. If people are listening didn't know, almost 10 years ago, I was on vacation in Annapolis with my son Jackson, visiting a school in Annapolis there. And first day I was okay, and then the second night at the rented house, I just fell out of bed, hit the side of the bed, and I had a massive stroke. The clot went into my heart, into my brain, into 3 different places. And so I'm just lucky to be alive. But I'm thankfully that my family was there to call 911 pretty fast because, I didn't really know what was going to go happening on. I couldn't talk or walk or do anything. It took me a year and a half to get much better. And so, after time, my book talks a little bit about my faith. My dad was a Lutheran minister, and so I think the faith that I had from Saskatchewan made a difference from me getting better, and a little bit about hockey, and then my stroke and how I recovered from my stroke. Of course, Wayne Fish really helped me with the book. And so I know that I still have copies available. When I come back in the summer, I'll set up some book signings, and so people want to buy the book. And it's a good read, and it's more about the stroke and how people can recover from strokes with the hints that I have in my book. And so it tells a really good story for the people who need the help.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that's scary. You never, it's one of those things in life. Like you never know what could happen to you in life. I mean, things can just come out of nowhere. That's pretty scary.
Well, I think I had AFib after my career, and so what I was going to do is I had blood thinners, but I didn't want. I was younger, and so I didn't want to take blood thinners my whole life, so I had an ablation of the heart, and that was a 7-hour operation at Penn. And so like it was supposed to be working, and then I thought I was going to work for good, but after a time I think the medication wore off, and then I was still in off AVE, and we had the stroke like 10 years ago, and so but you deal with it with how you can, and but I've come back a long way from that. Like I still have aphasia, which means that the words don't come out the same way, but if I slow down my speech and take my time, I learn how to relax and to talk a little bit better. And but it's people forget that like when you almost die, I'm happy every day just to be alive, and I see all other guys like from the NHL, like Trees from the Flyers, Lafreniere that just passed away, and so and Ed Van Imp, so like all these guys I've known, like they're passing away, and so again, I'm just happy to be alive every day, just doing what I can, like with the support that I have, like I run my own hockey event for the Headstrong Cancer in Philadelphia, like every year, and I did that this spring, and we raised a little money for that. And I had my golf tournament at River Winds for the Stroke Center of University of Pennsylvania, and that I just did that the day after Mother's Day, and so we raised a little money for the Stroke Center of University of Pennsylvania, and so just try to give back and to help raise more money for research, and to see if we can get healthier and find ways to get cured.
Can you also touch on your line of cigars that you have out?
Yeah. So like I have my own cigar brand from the Dominican Republic called Gaffa Cigars. That was like 8 years ago. I met with Ken Dunnick, a former Eagle, and my son Jackson. We visited the Dominican Republic, visited a couple of factories, and had a couple of people there. And then so I decided to make my own brand. It took me a year to do that, but I had a friend from the Dominican Republic help me with the blend. And so I started with boxes of 10 limited edition 56 by 5 inch. And when they sold okay, because I had 425 boxes for my 425 regular season goals. And then when they sold okay, then I decided to make a mild, a medium, and a Maduro 56 by 6 inch. But they're quality cigars, and they're really good. And if anybody wants it, if they want to go to my website, gaffacigars.com, I have them always with me, and so that way if they want to just call me or email me, then I can always I can ship them to them too.
Hey, great. Nice. Well, yeah, and you mentioned Gaffa. Well, I know as a kid playing street hockey, that was everybody's celebration. Literally, that was everybody every time a kid
every time you scored.
Celebration.
Yeah, so when I retired from the Flyers, like I worked at the Medford Ice Rink in New Jersey. I set up their rink and ran the whole programs. So I taught all the peoples how to learn to skate, play, and hockey. So I taught them the Gaffa, and I told them, hey, you get a teacher, teach your teacher to do a Gaffa, get an air, an A. Yeah. And then that way but it took off, and then so from there, and so it went along pretty good. And I know that a lot of people that know that I was the all-time winning left wing scorer in history for left wingers in the playoffs. I had 148 points and out of 160 games. And this year, Brad Marchand just passed me. And then, he's still in the playoffs. So he passed me. So I'm number 2 in all time for left winger scoring in the playoffs. But he had more games than he had. And of course, Alex Ovechkin was 1 point behind me with 1 game more than me. So I'm happy to be the 2 guys that I have that are going to probably be Hall of Fame players.
That was my question. I was going to ask you what your take of Alex Ovechkin was of breaking Wayne Gretzky's single season goal record.
Yeah, well, what a great scorer he is. I mean, how if you play 20 years and you to get that to those goals. I mean, that's unbelievable how good he can be, just to be strong and shoot the puck the right way and keep up with it. A lot of people when you're older, like you kind of lose the time for scoring and skating, but he's powerful and he's doing really good, and so he's one of the best players ever. I love to watch him. He's physical and he won a Stanley Cup in Washington. So I love the guys like that.
Yeah, well, listen, Brian. Thank you so much for hopping on with us. I mean, we love this is our second old school. We did one on Buddy Ryan about a month ago, and then we're doing you guys now. And like I said, I got to admit, your team got me into sports. I mean, just the fact that you never gave up. I mean, Game 5 down 2 goals, game 6 down 2 goals, game 3, you guys were down 3 goals, you know what I mean? And when you never gave up, and if any team ever deserved the championship, it was you guys. So, really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us.
Appreciate it very much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Hey, Brian, can you give us a goof off?
Yeah.
Just for old time's sake.
Hey.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Hey, thanks a lot, man.
Take
Nice
care.
to meet you. Thank you.
Okay.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye. Yeah, that was a great time, man.
Bye.
Oh, I got a couple more. Oh, shoot. I got a comment here. My man Bob Hartnett says, "Hey, Brian, I enjoyed the 86-87 Flyers. You were still and among one of my favorite players. Can you touch on Tocchet, the player, and what we could expect of him as coach?" Well, I think he kind of got into that a little bit, saying that he thinks that you're going to bring it back, right?
Yeah. Old school grittiness, just the way he played the game,
As it should have been played.
Yeah, and it should still be played, but yeah,
Mm-hmm.
But no, it was very good. It was very insightful to hear him talk about his book, So, yeah.
Yeah, and with very impressive. I mean, shoot, 160 playoff games, 148 points in 160 playoff games. I mean, that's special stuff.
Yeah,
that's really special stuff. I mean, you can't, like I said, guys, one of the all-time greats. You know what I mean?
And he gives praise too, where a lot of guys aren't so humble. Marchand just passed them. You know what I mean? Some guys are
bitter.
Not bitter, and what's the other ones? I guess you could say self-arrogance. Because it's my record, but he's humble and he praises the next generation. Obviously the three of us, old school, the next generation with this hockey.
Yeah, but that was a pretty long time to have that record broken.
Absolutely.
To be held.
Yeah.
You're almost talking 30, almost a little less than 40 years.
Yeah, you're right. It's a long time. Like you said.
Look how long Gretzky had the record, and Ovechkin, got drafted in, was it 03?
I believe
something like that. 03 or 05, yeah.
Right, I think it was the year before Crosby came out.
Yeah.
Because he came out with Malkin.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then Crosby got drafted by Pittsburgh.
Yeah. Well, hey, listen, so it was great having Brian Propp on, reliving memories from the team's perspective. And now we have the voice of the Flyers, the great Lauren Hart, is ready to hop on with us to share some memories of hers. Hi, Lauren. How are you?
Hi.
Hey, Lauren. Thank you for coming on. Appreciate you taking your. I know you said you had something going on and you were just taking a break here.
Yep, just practicing.
Yeah, but
the guitar's on the wall.
Right. We do appreciate you coming on and taking your time out to. We just had Brian Propp on about 2 minutes ago, and
the best.
Just talking about the Mike Keenan era of the 86-87 Flyers. Ron Hextall's rookie year, and post Pelly Lindbergh's passing, and just talking about to me it was probably one of the greatest championship runs the Philly team never ended up winning. I mean,
Yeah.
as they say, you took the best offensive hockey team, best offensive machine of all time, the 7 games, and Ron Hextall winning the Vezina, and just that whole. I mean, that just a shame. Like they said, the Flyers should have had their names engraved on that Stanley Cup right up there with Edmonton, and it was. I mean, you were right there firsthand with your, God bless your dad and everything.
Yeah.
But can you get into a little bit of, I mean, what that run was like, 86, 87 with Mike Keenan?
Well, I lived it through my parents for sure. It's also about that time was when, I watched hockey growing up, of course, but that was really the time I really got into hockey. Right. I really started understanding the game, and I was the fan in me. I was always a fan because of my dad, but it was that was the time that I really just gravitated towards hockey. And we had such an amazing cast of characters on those teams for us. And it was also with Mike Keenan, it was also right about in that era was the first couple of times I did sing the anthem as a kid. And it wasn't just maybe a couple of times here and there, but it was my first sort of being involved with the whole thing on the inside, more than just being Gene Hart's kid, and I'd trace down the hall after him and be like, just a young person. But I do remember that series so well, and especially that Game 7, because my dad, with the momentum they had in 87, that 7-game series, the momentum they had from coming back, 3-1.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It just, they felt, I know that my parents felt, and I know that there was no guarantee ever. You're playing probably the greatest, some of the greatest hockey players ever were that team. Glenn Anderson and Paul Coffey and Grant Fuhrer and Wayne Gretzky and Yari Curry, Kevin Lowe, who else was there? It's just they're all Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
The list, Mark Messier. Yeah. So this incredible machine of a team. And so it wasn't inevitable, but I feel like when they got to Game 7, everybody was ready for that win. It just felt kind of like they were destined to do it. And my dad took my mom on the flight, and the wives came, everybody came, because they really felt like, they had it. And, even going into Game 7, you were still it wasn't like they, it was like a lock or anything. But I do remember how incredibly excited after that season that they were to get on that plane and go, and how hopeful we were. And we all waited at home and watched those games late at night as kids, and just kind of super sad, kind of ending.
Right.
85, 87, those could have our teams at that time were just pretty outrageously good as well. So it was disappointing, but the excitement and that ramp up to that, I don't know that we never felt that, even I think in 2010 when we made that run. Right. I'm thinking about the eras of the 70s, okay, and then mid-late 80s. Then we had but the 2010 run, as great as it was, it was wow, we made it in. Woo,
right. On the last day of the season too.
Yeah, so we never had that expectation that we were going to be. We were just wow, we're still going, and this team is there was a destiny to that team, but I feel like it was just the late 80s were different. I feel like just everything that worked with the Flyers was working at that moment, including my father's broadcasting, which I thought, as great as he was in the 70s calling those champions, I listened to some of those games in the 85, 87 series, and it's just wow, he was really on his game. So it was, spectacular.
Yeah,
I was going to
say, what a year for me, because that was the first year I started watching sports. So listening to your dad and Bobby Taylor, and then like you said, going into Game 7, I mean, many people have said that the after JJ Daniels' goal in Game 6, like that was the loudest. That was like the loudest the Spectrum ever was. People said.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. I was there. And it was.
I remember being 15 years old and listening to your dad, on 610 WIP at the time. And it had to be near 11 o'clock, and we didn't have cable back then, at least in Philly. And, when Daniel popped that from the blue line, I think I woke my whole house up yelling.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you could just hear the crowd just erupt like a volcano.
Yeah.
Like, just getting chills and thinking back, it's like your old man said in Blood, Sweat, and Tears. It was the greatest comeback from the dead. You had a mixture of young guys like Tim Kerr, Mark Hale, Brian Propp, Rick Tocchet, Peter Zezel, Ron Hexel as a rookie, Brad Marsh. I mean, the name goes on. And just that whole nucleus, the Keenan, keeping those guys together. I mean, 8 guys injured and Pat bringing all those guys back from, Brian Propp coming back from a shattered knee. Who's going to come back from a shattered knee today? Nobody. Just the heart of the Lion, one of the best Philadelphia teams that never won anything. But those guys, I mean, hell, they had that cup. The only sad thing of that was, the Flyers scored the first time in the set. They had, they came back. They came from behind in 6 games. That was it.
Yeah. And I think that JJ Daigneault call was probably one of my all-time favorites of moments, but also calls of my dad. And then you had Zezel. You said that we had Murray Craven. You had Brad McCrimmon.
Scott Mellenby.
Yeah. Scott Mellenby. Yeah. Right. That was like.
I mean, he was a rookie that year too, I believe.
Yeah. Pretty
Kelly Eklund, Shell Samuelson. They traded for Froze.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. Like, so that was a pretty great team. It was just Edmonton just got it, just got it. So you think, and our guys were young, our guys were young at that time. That was a young team, I believe, so it's pretty special what they did. It's always hard to get there. And then you didn't get it, but all those runs and all those getting, the finals and, how accustomed we got to being a great team and getting into playoffs and being, this winning attitude, those 2 runs in 85 and 87 just really helped solidify it. Cause we all were like, okay, 70s, they did it. Okay. Right. But when you do it again a decade later and you're that close, 2 finals against the greatest team in the world at the time, and maybe still one of the all-time great teams ever. It really, you really have your place in history, and it set the standard, for the Flyers, period. Because I think if you think about the early 70s, you're like, yay, underdogs, they did it, and they were fighters, and they were bullies, and they came in and they knocked off the classics and all this stuff. But the 80s cemented the Flyers as like one of the all-time, great organizations in hockey.
Yeah. Right. Hey, Lauren, I actually have a question for you because when I was I remember this team obviously, but like I was doing a little research for my article and I saw that opening night you sung opening night.
I did.
Hextall. Yeah. So my question was like, when did you realize that you wanted to like sing? Was that something you always wanted to do?
Well, of course, yeah, because I always wanted to be a singer, and it seemed like the Flyers always had like sort of a young woman doing it. So they had Renee Veneziale, who was at that time, I think in the 80s, pretty sure that was their steady singer. And they had Andrea McArdle, who was a Philly girl also, and was famous for being an Annie. And, they always had their person as like the tradition of hockey. So there wasn't really a space for me, although I was always ready to fill in for whomever. And I think it's also, I wasn't a professional. I was a kid. I hadn't done Broadway, or I hadn't done anything really. My parents, I guess, knew I could sing and thought, but that's a whole heck of a lot different than getting in front of 18,000 people and doing the most difficult song, one of the most difficult songs ever.
Yeah.
So I was so proud when I was able to do it at that time, but also really terrified. Because
Right.
I do remember. So are you saying I sang in that series?
No, it was opening night because I was
Okay.
yeah, because I was researching, like like I said, I was a little kid. I mean, I remember a lot of stuff, but I was looking, and then I was like, oh my God, there's Lauren Hart singing. You know what I mean? So it was really it was interesting.
Yeah, that's very cool. Yeah, those were the first times I had done it, and really, really exciting. And I do remember, and I don't remember now what games and what series, but I do remember that in the old building, you used to come out at the very end of the ice, like, on the oval of the arena. Now we're kind of in the corners, but in the Spectrum, it was at the end of the ice. And also, a lot of times for big games, the opposing team came out there too. So I know, and I can't tell you what game particularly it was, but I know I was in that hallway and we were playing the Oilers, because I remember Wayne Gretzky standing right there, and I was just like shaking in my boots because I'm standing there like, okay, I'm gonna sing now, and there's all these players, they're ready to go to the game, they're just like, they could care less, like, I'm singing, but whatever. But to me, it was like, at that moment, it was like, gosh, wow.
Starstruck.
Yeah, I was totally starstruck, and my dad was never like a big like stage parent or anything like that to push me out, and he never really like kind of pushed me to sing or do anything like that, or got me super involved. But I do remember that moment and just being in such awe. And I do remember my dad introducing me to Wayne, afterwards. That's what he, that's how highly he thought of Wayne Gretzky, because he didn't introduce me to a lot, a lot of the players. He's just like, yeah, keep going. You don't want to know hockey players.
We do have a question, Robert Hartnett.
Yes.
Yeah. So Rob says you're great, beautiful voice. Is it any different for you than the first time you sung the national anthem?
Hey, Rob. Robert. Well, I will say I'm still scared every time, and now it's I don't think it's scared, but now I call it adrenaline that makes me focus and be ready, like just like maybe like an athlete.
Like jitters.
Yeah, always. What's different now is I'm so invested in this team and them getting back there. I'm heart and soul into it. I think when I first started, I was Gene Hart's kid, and it was really cool for me to do it. I could have never imagined that I'd be part of the team the way that I am. It just turned into something, wow for me. When I first did it, was just like a really cool thing, and I sing full time. I do music. That's my profession, and then the Flyers are my passion. To be part of that, and I think what's different now is that I am so all in. I am right there with everybody in those seats. I watch every game. That's probably the number one question I get. Do you stay and watch the games? That's one of the number one questions I get. And I'm like, well, yes, I do. Every single one of them, I usually, So I think that's what's different. And also, like, I think I try to honor the history. Like, obviously things are moving forward and change is all the time and everything. Yeah. So I kind of like try to bring a little piece of history with me, like for all the great people that have been part of our organization, and my dad, Ed Snyder, and, all these people that were so influential and are so influential in my life and still are. And then be right there with everybody in the right here and now. And here's new players and here's new things. And that's the unique part that I get to do, is that, and my dad repeated this often, is that he had the greatest seat in the world for these games, because while players came in and out and coaches came in and out, he was the one thing that was constant, through all those years. And he got to his vantage point. He got to see these games and see this stuff, over and over and over again. And that's how I feel. I just feel really lucky that I do what I do, and I get to watch all these amazing athletes come through, and I'm I'm right there with every fan who's just like on the edge of their seat and going, "Come on, let's do this."
Yeah.
Right.
So I think that that's the most change. I always loved it, but now it's a different thing. Yeah.
We do have two other questions. We have Robert Hartman again. Do you know any of the Flyers Warriors?
The Flyers Warriors. I do. I've done a bunch of games for the Warriors. They're really cool. That's what a great organization. I watch them from afar. So I've sung some of the games, but I've also I watched them going to nationals and doing all the cool things they do. And just what an outstanding group of guys there. And any chance I get to be involved or they invite me, I'm always like, yes. I'm a big yes on that one.
Yeah, Mike Papernick Jr. was wondering if you have a relationship with Comcast like you had with Ed Snyder.
Well, my relationship with Ed Snyder, he was kind of like a second dad for me. He was very father figure-ish to me, and I would say that the new I don't know, I don't want to give the wrong title. But our new leader, I'll say leader, in Dan Hilferty, I really like a lot. And I speak with, often coming into games, and I see what he's doing behind the scenes. And it's really awesome. He's, for me, there's no easy way to just fix everything. But I think in a short period of time, he's totally changed the environment in there for the better. And that comes along with Danny and Keith and all the other guys that are in there working hard every day, to get this team moving forward. And they're definitely on the right path. And I think in management and owners, they're doing a really good job now. And I see Brian Roberts, who's really like the king of all Comcast. And I can't say we're best buddies or anything, but every time that I've been around him or been with him, he's a really nice guy, and I sincerely think he wants this team to win, just like Ed wanted, and all these guys that are in there now want. So I feel good about it. Yeah.
Lauren, I know you don't have much more time. I know you said you had to get going in a couple minutes. What's your take of the 25th Flyers head coach of Rick Tocchet being hired?
I'm liking it. I'm liking it. You're no matter who we would get, you're gonna have the naysayers no matter what, right?
Yep.
Right.
There's no one that was gonna come in that people were gonna be like, yeah, we're all on board for this person. I think at first I was thinking, oh, maybe they should do a college coach, and somebody who really related. I was looking out at the coach in Denver, and just me thinking about coaches. But after I heard them say Rick, this is a Jack Adams winner. This is a guy that's been there and done it, and he's one of the most sought after NHL coaches in the league, hands down, period. So the fact that we got him says a lot, and the fact that I got to speak with him briefly at his press conference, welcoming him home, and I feel good things about it. I think he really is going to relate to the players really well. I think he's going to really be able to help develop them. But I also don't think he's just Mr. Soft. He's not going to. He's going to be engaged, and he's got spirit and emotion, and he's not going to just be like, this stoic person behind the. He's a definite
he's going to hold
heart on the sleeve guys. Yeah.
Well, it's going to just bring that old school fire of, Flyers, old time hockey, not the old time hockey, but just, talk as a player.
Yeah.
And toughness.
Yes.
That's what I think's really lacking to me. I like the fighting aspect, but they took that away from the game.
Yeah. Well,
I think Tocchett's going to bring his leadership, like you said, Lauren,
yeah,
and all that other stuff, and I'm looking forward to seeing a former player be the coach.
Right, I think so. And remember, he's a Stanley Cup winner.
Yeah,
as a coach. You know, he took that Sidney Crosby was a young man when they won those cups out of there. So he knows what it takes to have young people and to, you know, get them going to the top. And, you know, he's done well with other teams. You know, and Danny said at the press conference something really interesting was like what really intrigued him about Rick was his stint in Arizona and like how little they were expected to do and how, you know, how much he was able to bring them along. So, you know, we've got work to do and we've got pieces. They know that. Everybody knows it. And if there were a magic formula, we'd all be doing it. So, right? But I think we're starting to pull some really good pieces together, you know, and it just, you know, you just never know if you're watching the playoffs now, and I'm assuming everybody is but like you look at great teams like Dallas and Carolina, and I may be eating my words in a couple days, but I don't think so. They're great, super skilled, great teams, but it's just not it. They're so great. Those teams are so great, but they are not going to get past Edmonton and Florida. They're just those two teams. So it's not like something you can just see on paper because you look at talent on Hurricanes and Dallas and you're like, wow, you know, you got Ottinger, like this amazing goalie, and you've got all these, you know, these Finns and all this talent, and it doesn't get you all the way there. So it really takes a lot of different things, and it starts from behind the scenes all the way up to the player on the ice and the puck in the net. So, and I think we're on our way. We're on our way.
Yeah, here's hoping that this time next year you're singing this time of year.
Please. You know how jealous I am watching all these other anthems on TV.
Right.
I'm like, cool, and now I need to get back out there and sing a couple singers, which they're not in it there this year, but I like from Tampa Bay, a couple, you know, teams that have won it. I'm watching them singing with their mic and their Stanley Cup ring on, and so jealous.
Don't worry.
Yeah, one of these days, right? Hey, you know what? We're going back to the past to move forward to the future, right? With Tocchet, so let's hope it works.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, and it's all important. You know, the past is important. It doesn't mean you live there all the time. Of course you don't. But you have to have something to build. We have shoulders to stand on. Right. You know, and we should use all the tools that we have and all the things that we have, and to get to where we're going. You know, and this organization has always been a winner for so long. We have really, you know, it's hurt these last years for sure.
Right.
That we have to stand on those winning shoulders that they built, you know, because that's how we're going to get to the next place. You know?
Definitely want to get back to that winning tradition of you know, yesteryear. Yeah.
And make new ones, you know, and we've got the talent. We've got some. I deserve a ring. I see you, Robert. Yes. I wish, you know, we're going to get one. We're going to get there. We're all going to hang in there together. That's all I can say.
Yes, yes, we are. Well, listen, really appreciate you taking the time to hang out with us. It was a lot of fun.
Anytime.
And where can people? I'm sure people can see you around, you know, with the flyers, and then any other places too.
Yes. Well, you can check out laurenhart.com. It's being updated now to give the latest dates. But I am in Jersey at Auburn Road Vineyards on June the 7th. Really cool. Really cool vineyard. Title says itself. With some friends of mine, my band, and we're going to be playing out there and drinking wine and hanging out. So if you're around on the 7th, come see us.
Hey, great.
Thank you for calling on, you know, taking your time out of your busy schedule.
Anytime.
I deeply appreciate it.
Anytime. You guys are the best.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good one. Go Flyers.
You too.
Go Flyers.
See ya.
Do it.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, that was fun. You know what? Hey, hopefully we're actually playing one of these years, right? Wouldn't that be nice to get back to playoff hockey?
Well, of course. I mean, it's been so long.
Yeah. Hey, maybe they do it like the Eagles, man. You never know. Phillies. Something's going to happen. I feel something.
I mean, you can only be out of it for so long until
you know,
you can't.
It's like a puzzle. You got to get the right pieces. And you know what? I think Danny Briere Keith Jones, and now with Tockett, I think we're on to see brighter sides of this team. So,
well, Briere having
forward to it.
7 picks in the first 2 rounds.
Absolutely. I mean,
So,
see what they could do, choose wisely, pick wisely, or whatever the case may be. But sky's the limit. You like Lawrence said, you got heavy shoulders to stand on, so you never know.
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, hey, like we said, I mean, the one thing about this team is they've had a great tradition.
Yeah.
I mean, back and you look at the decade, we with the 86, 87 team, not just that team, but if you look at that decade of the 80s, I mean, many people would say that Flyers run, the Keenan era was one of the best teams to not win a cup. I mean, you figure, and I meant to say this to Brian, but he brought it up, but I firmly believe as good as that Edmonton team was, and on paper, they were, I mean, on paper, they were one of the best teams ever. But I do really wonder if Tim Kerr was healthy, if he would have made a difference in that series.
I think so. I mean, hell, he scored 50 goals 4 years in a row. The guy was like a shark in front of the net. How big he was. It's a shame he had that bad shoulder injury, which
it would have made a difference.
I think so. I mean, to me, Tim Kerr was probably a center that was always underrated.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, the guy was a bull in front of the net. A lot of people don't really talk about him, but you look at his stats.
He was a statue, Stonewall statue.
It was. You couldn't get him out of the crease.
He had that unbelievable wrist shot.
Yeah.
He would be right in front of the. He'd be right in front of the goal, and he would hit you with that wrist shot, and he would.
Yep.
I mean, he would do it.
Yep.
He would do a glove hand so many times, or like Mike said, short side. I mean, that's the thing. What a great team, and I don't want to shortchange. I mean, we're going to get ready to wrap up in a couple minutes here, but like I don't want to shortchange because the talent that was on that team, because everybody thinks of like Hart, and they had a lot of heart, but Brian Propp said it when he was on the show. I mean, what are we? 30 plus years later, and his record for left wingers was just broken. So I mean, you look at the talent on the Flyers team. You had Propp, you had a young Tockett. Became
Melody. Yeah, I mean, we can go on and
on.
Yeah, I mean, so much immense talent and variation of skill sets in those players, which made this team as good as they were that year.
Another guy that was underrated was Sinisalo.
Yeah,
Pelly Eklund
player.
Yep.
It was a young core mix, an older core mix with a younger core. Like I said, you had Markel and Brad McCrim were probably one of the top 2 best, what do you call it, defensemen in the league at that time.
Right.
Yeah, they were perfect. They were the perfect combination. You know what I mean? I mean, Hal could go up and lead and join the rush at times, and if he did, McCrimmon would have his back on the back end. You know what I'm saying? And then
exactly.
And then you brought up Pelly Eklund. I mean, Eklund was a hell of a passer, but they don't win that Montreal series without Pelly Eklund. I think Pelly Eklund had a hat trick. I think he had a hat trick one of the games. It was either game 3 or game 4. And then how about that team too? It didn't matter. You think about it. It didn't matter where they played. Like that Flyers team, the first round. Second round against the Islanders, they win games 3 and 4 on Long Island.
Mm-hmm.
Montreal, they win all 3 games in Montreal. And then even Edmonton, they split in Edmonton. They go 2 and they only won 1. I'm sorry. They won 1 in Edmonton. My bad. But even so, though, winning in Edmonton was really, really tough. I mean, they were, so
Big time.
yeah. But like we said, if any team deserved a cup, it was that team. It's a shame because the high water mark was 87. The following year, I think McCrimmon went to Calgary the next year.
He got traded because he wanted more money and contract dispute, and you didn't play with Clark then. It was basically like the Eagles with Joe Banner. You had a contract offer, you didn't want it, bye.
Yeah,
it's a shame because they traded McCrimmon the following.
I remember that too.
Well, that was a big loss because, and I think if memory serves, I think Hextall had some hamstring problems or something the next year.
Well, if you remember, they got knocked out the following year in the first round by Washington.
Yeah, well, exactly. In fact, I remember that because I think they were up.
They fired Keenan.
Yeah, they were up like
Paul Holmgren became the coach.
Yeah, they were up like 2-3-0, I think, in Game 7, and then Washington came back. They lost in overtime, and yeah, like you said, then they fired Keenan, and then the era was pretty much that era was kind of done. But then in '89, I think they finished third or something in '89. They actually made a nice run. They beat Pittsburgh in a Game 7 behind Ken Reggett. I remember they traded Ken Reggett.
Right.
And then
was hurt.
They wound up playing Montreal in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Right.
Lost in 6, and then unfortunately after that, injuries and age started creeping in, and really it was what was it, about 4 or 5 years and no playoffs up until the Lindros era.
Well, if you remember, I think Brian Propp was the first to go after that run. Then I believe Dave Poland and a lot of those, Zezel was traded for Mike Bullard. And, a lot of those got, that team was basically broken up and
dismantled.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it was a shame because 2-3 years later, it was, like you said, they were out of the playoff run.
Yeah, they missed the playoffs from I think it was 89-90 up until
93-94.
94, 94-95.
95 was a strike. 95 was a strike year.
No, well, that was the year they traded for Leclerc. They got Desjardins. They traded Desjardins. It was the Legion of Doom.
Desjardins and John Leclerc and Gilbert Dion.
Yep. Yeah. So anyway, it's damn shame they didn't win, but great team nonetheless, and it was a lot of fun doing research on remembering and researching. If anybody watching has a chance, I wrote an article on the team. If you want to check it out, it's called Pride and Perseverance. It's on Streampunk ENT. So if you want, check out the article. And like we were saying, this is the second episode of the Old School. Probably next month, I don't know, next 3 weeks to a month, we're going to come back. We're actually going to do the for any basketball fans out there, we're going to do the 01 Sixers, that great Sixers run of it's one thing about Philadelphia sports. We do have some championships, but we have a lot of close calls, don't we?
Yeah, we do, but that's what makes it sports. I mean, on your toes, biting your fingernails, but
93 Phillies.
Yeah.
So a lot of those Eagles teams in the early 2000s.
Absolutely. But hopefully things are to come for the better, So
right.
Yeah, so we're going to get into all them. Like I said, next episode we're going to do the 01 Sixers around training camp. I actually want to do the Jeff Lurie era Eagles. And basically break down how Jeff Lurie, since he's bought the Philadelphia Eagles, the Eagles have gone from, kind of the little kids table of the NFL to now the Eagles are at the big boy table in National Football.
Surf and turf.
We're going to break that down. And so we got some good shows coming up. So stay tuned. And thanks everybody for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much for Brian Propp and Lauren Hart for coming on and chopping it up with us. It was a great time. And we will be back in about a month. So, oh, and hang on, I got one more comment here. Mike Papernick Jr. says the Philly pro sports teams have seven titles total.
Good to know. You know.
Well, you know what? More's coming, and like I said,
baby.
That's part of the reason for the Jeff Lurie. Part of the reason for the Jeff Lurie one, because the Eagles, he got ridiculed for the gold standard comment. But I got to keep it real. The man's kind of backed it up. I mean, the Eagles kind of are a gold standard right now. So
no, 3 Super Bowls in the last 8 years, and how many, just can't. It's not. There's just amazing things to say about the Eagles brass and organization.
And for all the Dallas Cowboys fans out there, you just flip in one of those VHS tapes, live your days, because I got 5 championships. But just like Joey said, that's for another time and day.
Yep.
But enjoy the VHS tapes, Cows. Go Birds.
And let's hope that our man Tockett gets us in the playoffs this year or next year. And we start contending, so Flyers fans don't have to break out VHS tapes anymore. Because I was really sad because I think it was like a day or two ago it was the actual 50-year anniversary of the last Cup. So we're overdue here. You know what I'm saying?
Don't worry, good things are to come, Joey.
Yeah. So all right. Well, thanks for checking us out.
Thanks,
we'll see you next month. Thanks again to Brian Propp and Lauren Hart, and
thank you
see
again
you next time.
You again later.